Taylor Allison Swift was born on the 13th of December 1989 in a peaceful rural area of Pennsylvania, USA. Her childhood was surrounded by fields, wide skies, and a comforting sense of quiet. Her father, Scott Swift, worked in finance, and her mother, Andrea Swift, was a loving and supportive figure who played a huge role in shaping Taylor's early life. Their home wasn't luxurious in a glamorous way, but it was rich in warmth, encouragement, and creativity. From an early age, Taylor showed a natural curiosity for words and storytelling. She kept diaries, wrote small poems, and enjoyed turning thoughts into sentences. While many children spend most of their time outdoors, Taylor often sat with her notebook, writing about how she felt or what she imagined. Even then, she was unknowingly training herself for the future to become one of the world's most influential songwriters. Discovering music, one of the most important turning points in Taylor's life, came by complete coincidence. A computer technician once visited their home to fix her parents' computer. He happened to bring a guitar with him and casually played a few chords. Taylor watched closely, fascinated by both the sound and the instrument itself. She asked him to show her how to play. He taught her a few simple chords, and that tiny moment quietly changed the course of her life. Taylor began practicing obsessively. Her fingers hurt, the strings felt sharp, and progress was slow, but she refused to give up. The guitar quickly became her constant companion. She didn't just sing along to other people's songs. Instead, she began writing her own lyrics, turning thoughts and emotions into melodies. Music became her way of expressing feelings she didn't always know how to explain in conversation. Her parents noticed that this was not a passing phase or a childish game. Their daughter had real passion and real talent. The big dream, Nashville. By the age of 12, Taylor had already made a decision many adults would still be unsure about. She wanted to become a country music artist. For that dream, there was only one real destination: Nashville, Tennessee, the global heart of country music. So she recorded a demo CD and traveled to Nashville with her mother. Full of hope, they visited record labels and music offices, expecting at least one door to open. But the reality was difficult. "You're too young. Come back when you're older." That was the response again and again. For many children, this would have been enough to end the dream completely. But Taylor refused to believe that no was the final answer. She decided she simply needed more time, more growth, and more persistence. Eventually, her perseverance paid off. She signed her first record deal with Big Machine Records. She was just 16 years old when her debut album, Taylor Swift, was released. Her music didn't feel artificial or overly produced. Instead, it sounded honest and familiar, like a conversation with a friend. Songs such as "Teardrops on My Guitar," Our Song, reflected real teenage emotions, crushes, confusion, sadness, and hope. Listeners loved her sincerity. She wasn't pretending to be someone older or tougher than she really was. She simply sang the truth. Very quickly, Taylor became one of the most recognizable young musicians in America, a star in the making. But this was only the beginning. Success had arrived, yet Taylor knew she still had far to go. She kept writing, kept learning, and kept growing. Her drive wasn't fueled by fame or glamour. It came from something deeper, a genuine love for music and storytelling. This first chapter of her life shows how one girl with a guitar, determination, and family support transformed a childhood dream into the start of a real career. And the world had only just begun to notice her. After the success of her first album, Taylor Swift was no longer just a small-town girl with a guitar. She was becoming a recognized voice in American music. But the real turning point arrived with her second album, Fearless, released in 2008. Fearless, a global breakthrough. Fearless didn't simply perform well, it exploded in popularity. Songs like Love Story, You Belong With Me were played everywhere, on the radio, television, school corridors, car journeys across the United States, the UK, Europe, and beyond. Love Story, inspired loosely by Romeo and Juliet, became one of the most loved pop country songs of its time. It was romantic yet innocent, emotional yet catchy, and its fairy tale style storytelling captured millions of hearts. The album went on to win the Grammy Award for Album of the Year, making Taylor one of the youngest winners in history. Suddenly, she was not just a rising artist, she was a global star. But with global attention comes global pressure. The 2009 VMA incident. In 2009, Taylor attended the MTV Video Music Awards. When she won Best Female Video, she went on stage to give her acceptance speech. Halfway through, rapper Kanye West interrupted her. The audience gasped. Millions watching at home were stunned. Taylor stood frozen, shocked, embarrassed, unsure what to say. Although the incident became one of the most talked about moments in pop culture, Taylor handled it with quiet dignity. She didn't lash out. She didn't create drama. Instead, she allowed time and her music to speak for her. It was painful, but it also showed the world that Taylor had grace under pressure. Speak Now, a songwriter's statement. In 2010, Taylor released Speak Now. What made this album remarkable was that she wrote every single song herself. That level of creative control is rare, especially for someone still so young. Songs such as Back to December, Mine, Mean, showed emotional depth and maturity. Mean, in particular, addressed criticism and bullying, turning negativity into empowerment. The album proved that Taylor wasn't just a singer performing songs written for her. She was a genuine storyteller, shaping her own narrative. Red, love, heartbreak, and emotional growth. Then came Red in 2012. An album filled with intensity and vulnerability. It explored the highs and lows of love, the thrill, confusion, heartbreak, and longing. Tracks like I Knew You Were Trouble, We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together, All Too Well, became instant fan favorites. All Too Well, especially, would later become legendary for its poetic storytelling and raw honesty. Listeners across the world related deeply to the feelings she expressed, because they were universal. By this point, Taylor had clearly evolved from a teenage country star into an international icon, someone who could blend country, pop, storytelling, and authenticity. Reinvention from country to pop. As her career grew, so did her artistic ambitions. Taylor didn't want to be trapped in one genre forever. She wanted to explore, experiment, and reinvent herself, even if that meant taking risks. This desire led to what would become the next great transformation of her career, moving fully into pop music. But with reinvention came scrutiny. The media followed her every move. Her friendships, relationships, and even her lyrics were constantly analyzed. Fame was rewarding, but also exhausting. Learning to live in the public eye, Taylor's life was no longer private. Every smile, every mistake, every heartbreak, all of it became public discussion. Many people forget that behind the superstar image was still a young woman trying to figure life out. Yet, instead of breaking under pressure, Taylor did what she had always done best. She turned life into music. Her songs became not just entertainment, but emotional confession, a bridge connecting her to millions of listeners, a star with purpose. Even as her fame grew, Taylor continued to stay grounded. She regularly spoke about kindness, hard work, and staying true to yourself. She supported young artists, worked with charities, and remained deeply grateful to fans, often interacting with them personally online and at shows. By the end of this phase of her career, one fact was clear. Taylor Swift was no longer simply successful. She was influential. Her words mattered. Her music shaped culture. Her story inspired millions, especially young women who saw in her a reflection of their own dreams, fears, and hopes. And just when the world thought she had reached her peak, Taylor was preparing for an even bigger transformation, one that would change the direction of her career forever. By the mid-2010s, Taylor Swift was already one of the most recognizable artists on the planet. Yet instead of remaining safely within the country pop style that had made her famous, she chose a bold path, complete artistic reinvention. The pop transformation 1989. In 2014, Taylor released 1989, her first fully pop album, inspired by the bright, synth-driven sound of 1980s music. This was not a cautious step, it was a leap. She cut ties with country radio, embraced a new aesthetic, and presented herself as a global pop star. Songs like Shake It Off, Blank Space, Style swept across the world. Shake It Off celebrated self-confidence and refusing to let criticism define you. Blank Space cleverly turned media stereotypes about her love life into satire, proving that Taylor could laugh at herself while remaining lyrically sharp. 1989 was not only a musical success, it became a cultural event. The album went multi-platinum, sold out stadiums, and earned her another Grammy Award for Album of the Year. Taylor had managed what many artists struggle to achieve: a complete genre transition without losing authenticity or her audience. Media pressure and public narratives. But enormous success also meant intensified scrutiny. The media documented every aspect of Taylor's life: friendships, relationships, outfits, gestures, and tweets. Online commentary grew harsher. Narratives formed about who she was and what she represented, often simplifying a complex human being into a headline. Some public feuds and misunderstandings turned into global news stories. On social media, criticism sometimes turned into hostility. The word snake began appearing as an insult, a symbol of betrayal and controversy. For any person, this level of negative attention would be emotionally draining. But Taylor had always transformed hardship into art, and this time would be no different. Reputation, owning the narrative. In 2017, she released Reputation, a darker, edgier album reflecting themes of trust, betrayal, power, anger, and rebirth. The album wasn't a plea for sympathy, it was a declaration of strength. With songs like Look What You Made Me Do, Ready for It, Delicate, Taylor explored how fame can distort perception, how public judgment can hurt, and how rebuilding identity requires courage. The snake symbol that had once been used to attack her became a badge of resilience. She reclaimed it and turned it into a brand of empowerment. The Reputation Stadium Tour became one of the highest-grossing tours of all time, proving that despite controversy, or perhaps because of how honestly she confronted it, her connection with fans remained unbreakable. A return to light, Lover. After the storm came color. In 2019, Taylor released Lover, a warm, hopeful, romantic album filled with softness and joy. Tracks like Lover, Emmy, and You Need to Calm Down celebrated love, individuality, and kindness. The album reflected a calmer, more grounded Taylor, a woman who had been through the fire and emerged wiser, softer, but still strong, fighting for her master's artist rights. Around this time, another major chapter unfolded. Taylor discovered that the master recordings of her early albums had been sold without her approval. For most artists, this would have been the end of the discussion. Contracts are contracts. But Taylor chose a different path. To regain artistic ownership, she began re-recording her old albums and releasing them as Taylor's version. This move was historic. It reshaped conversations about artist rights, power dynamics in the music industry, and the importance of creative ownership. Fans supported her fully, streaming and purchasing the new versions, allowing her to reclaim control over her life's work. It was not simply a business move. It was a message. Artists deserve to own the art they create. A new creative direction, Folklore and Evermore. In 2020, during the global pandemic, while the world was quiet and uncertain, Taylor surprised everyone with two introspective indie folk albums, Folklore, Evermore. These records stepped away from pop glamour and into a world of storytelling, fiction, character-based narratives, and emotional subtlety. Songs such as Cardigan, Exile, and Willow revealed a mature writer deepening her craft. Folklore won Album of the Year at the Grammys, once again confirming Taylor's ability to evolve constantly while maintaining artistic excellence. A story of resilience. Across this entire period, Taylor was also dealing with private challenges, including her mother's illness, personal relationships, and the emotional strain of constant public visibility. Yet each time life knocked her down, she transformed the experience into music, not as escapism, but as healing. By the end of this phase, one truth had become clear. Taylor Swift was no longer just a star. She was a cultural force, a resilient storyteller, and a symbol of artistic independence. And her journey was still far from over. By the early 2020s, Taylor Swift had already reinvented herself multiple times, from country prodigy to global pop phenomenon, from media target to symbol of artistic strength. Yet her journey kept expanding, not just musically, but culturally and economically as well. The Eras Tour, a celebration of every chapter. In 2023, Taylor launched what would become one of the biggest concert tours in history, the Eras Tour. Unlike traditional tours that focus only on one album, this tour celebrated every distinct era of her career. The country beginnings, the fairy tale fearless years, the lyrical depth of Red, the pop revolution of 1989, the bold statement of Reputation, the romantic glow of Lover, the poetic storytelling of Folklore and Evermore, and her newest releases. Each era had its own costume style, color theme, stage visuals, choreography, and emotional tone. For fans, it wasn't just a concert, it was like traveling through time, revisiting memories and emotions attached to each album. The tour sold out stadiums worldwide, including across the UK and Europe. Cities reported boosts in tourism, hospitality revenue, and even transportation demand whenever Taylor performed. Economists began referring to it jokingly, but truthfully, as the Taylor Swift effect. A community, not just a fan base. One of the most powerful aspects of Taylor's impact is the sense of community her fans feel. Concert-goers created friendship bracelets, wore themed outfits, and shared stories of how her music shaped their lives. People didn't just attend alone, families, groups of friends, and even multiple generations came together. Her shows became safe spaces of joy, emotion, nostalgia, and collective singing. For many fans, it felt like being seen, understood, and united. Documentary and accessibility. To make the experience available to millions who couldn't attend. The Eras Tour film was released in cinemas and later streaming platforms. It quickly became one of the highest-earning concert films ever, another milestone proving just how culturally influential Taylor had become. Continuing creativity, ever evolving. Even while touring, Taylor continued writing and releasing music. Each album reflected growth, not just in sound, but in emotional perspective. Her songwriting matured from fairy tale romance to complex reflections on adulthood, identity, grief, love, insecurity, responsibility, and purpose. Critics who once questioned her longevity were now acknowledging her as one of the defining artists of her generation. Awards, records, and recognition. Across her career, Taylor amassed multiple Grammy Awards, including several Album of the Year wins, historical chart records, billion-level streaming figures, sold-out global stadium tours. But beyond trophies, what stood out was her ability to connect, to make music that felt personal to millions. Philanthropy and advocacy. Taylor has also been known for her charitable efforts, donating to education programs, disaster relief, food banks, and health causes. She has quietly supported fans in need and contributed to communities affected by crises. Her fight for artist ownership reshaped industry conversations, encouraging greater transparency and fairness. Young artists began negotiating differently, inspired by her courage, balancing public and private life. Despite intense fame, Taylor increasingly values privacy. She carefully chooses what to share and what to keep personal. This balance allows her to remain grounded and to write from a real, reflective place. She has learned, sometimes painfully, that being constantly in the spotlight requires emotional resilience, trusted relationships, strong boundaries, and she has gradually built those safeguards around herself. A role model for a new generation, Taylor Swift is admired not only for music, but for qualities such as determination, kindness, vulnerability, steady growth, independence. Her story reassures young people that failure, rejection, criticism, and mistakes do not define you. Your response does. She normalized expressing feelings openly and creatively. She showed that strength and sensitivity can coexist. A living legacy still being written. Standing on stage during the Eras tour, guitar in hand, thousands singing along, Taylor isn't just performing songs. She's revisiting the chapters of her life alongside millions who grew up with her. Her journey illustrates that success isn't linear. It bends, falls, rises again. And through each twist, she kept creating, learning, and evolving. By the end of this era, one truth feels undeniable. Taylor Swift is not only one of the biggest artists of our time, she is one of its greatest storytellers. And incredibly, her story is still unfolding. Today, Taylor Swift stands not only as one of the world's biggest music artists, but also as a symbol of resilience, creativity, and self-expression. Her journey from a small-town girl with a notebook and a guitar to a global cultural icon is a reminder that dreams, when nurtured with dedication and courage, can grow beyond imagination. A voice that speaks to millions. Taylor's music connects deeply because it is honest. She writes about real emotions: joy, heartbreak, doubt, hope, insecurity, strength, and growth. Her lyrics capture moments many people struggle to describe, whether it's the excitement of first love, the pain of saying goodbye, or the quiet courage of starting again. Taylor finds the words and sets them to melody. For millions of listeners across the UK, Europe, and around the world, her songs feel like companions through life's chapters. Growth in public and grace under pressure. Few people grow up under such intense public scrutiny, Yet Taylor has continued to evolve, musically and personally, while learning to protect her privacy and mental well-being. She has faced criticism, misunderstanding, rumors, and public controversies, but each time she has returned stronger, turning adversity into art. Her journey shows that vulnerability is not weakness, it is power. Influence beyond music. Taylor's impact stretches far beyond charts and streaming numbers. She has changed the conversation about artists' rights and ownership, championed creativity, literacy, and education, inspired young writers and musicians across the world, encouraged kindness, independence, and self-respect. Her decision to re-record her albums was not just a business move, it was a statement about dignity and control in an industry that often underestimates young artists, especially women. A legacy still growing. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about Taylor Swift is that, despite everything she has already achieved, her story still feels unfinished. Each era brings new soundscapes, new reflections, and new emotional depths. She continues to challenge herself artistically, while staying grounded in the simple truth that began it all. She loves writing songs and sharing them. What her story teaches us. Taylor's life and career quietly remind us that rejection is not the end, it is often the beginning. Success requires patience and hard work. Staying true to yourself matters more than pleasing everyone. And even in the loudest world, authenticity still resonates. From bedroom notebooks to sold-out stadiums, from heartbreak to healing, from a teenage dream to a global legacy. Taylor Swift's journey is the story of courage meeting creativity. And as long as she keeps writing, singing, and evolving, the world will keep listening, not just to the music, but to the message beneath it. Be honest, be brave, and never stop telling your story.